In this video we're going to talk about sight. We're going to talk about visible light as the things that are picked up by the eye. We're going to talk about human vision and how we see, some of the basic principles about absorption and reflection when referring to different wavelengths of light, and talk about the vision of a couple of other animals including dogs and starlings, and finally finish up with a little bit about UV pigments that are found in flowers. So firstly, visible light. Humans are able to detect light, which is a form of electromagnetic radiation, between about 380 and about 780 nanometers. These aren't set in stone. Different sources will give you different numbers here. Those 380 are in the blue end of the spectrum. Past that would be the ultraviolet, things that we can't see but radiation that is there. The 780 would be at the red end of the spectrum, and the next band of radiation past there is the infrared. So that's visible light, which we can see, and then you've got ultraviolet and infrared just outside of that, which we cannot see. Now that infrared you may detect as heat, and that ultraviolet will cause you sunburn, but you won't be able to actually see it with your eyes. The way that humans see is we have 4 different types of photoreceptors on the retina at the back of our eyes. Now, of those 4 receptors, there are 3 photoreceptors called cones, and they pick up color vision, and another type of photoreceptor called rods, and they detect movement, and particularly at low light levels. So at high light levels, our cones start kicking in, and we have 3 colors of cones. We have one cone here in the blue area of that visible light. We have one in the green area of the visible light, and one in the red area of the visible light. So blue, green and red are our primary colors that are found in the cones in our eyes. Now you may have been told that the primary colors are something else by your art teacher. That's not how the eyes work. Okay, so we're talking about the difference between color addition with light and color subtraction, which is about pigments and paint and stuff like that. Completely different things. These photoreceptors are stimulated to different levels depending on the frequency of light. So for example, here we've got cyan as a color, so there will be some stimulation of the blue one, some stimulation of the green photoreceptors, and less stimulation of the red photoreceptor. And this our brains will interpret as being the color cyan. When light comes from the sun, it's all different wavelengths mixed together. And we detect these different wavelengths, or this mixture of wavelengths, as being white light. So it is all different wavelengths, but because of our primary colors being red, green and blue, we'll start thinking about them as being the 3 wavelengths of light. Okay, so when that light, those 3 different colors hit an object, if they are all reflected, we will perceive this object as being white. If that object has pigments in it that absorbs all those 3 colors and no light is reflected, we will perceive that object as being black. Similarly, if an object absorbs both red and blue light, we'll perceive it as being green. If it's the green and blue and reflects the red, we perceive it as being red. Okay, so whatever is reflected is what we actually see as the color of an object. But that white light means that all objects, all wavelengths of light are hitting the object in the first place. Dogs, unlike humans, only have 3 different types of photoreceptors. They've got their rods, same as us, and then they've got 2 different cone receptors. One in the blue spectrum and one in the yellow spectrum. This means that the colors that their brains can make up only consists of the blue and the yellow. So without those same cones as us, their vision is much more limited than ours. Starlings, on the other hand, a type of bird, they have an extra set of cones, and that extra set of cones, or that extra type of cone, actually sees down in the ultraviolet, so in an area where we cannot perceive light, or we cannot see light being. This is common amongst birds and also common amongst bees. The reason that it's probably common amongst these animals, birds and bees, is because they're pollinators. And flowers, some flowers have UV signatures on them. So here we've got a flower as we would see the flower in the visible range. Now, taken with a UV camera, you can see that there is a dark spot in the center here. Now, the bird or the bee would actually perceive that as being another color, and probably quite a bright color that we just can't even fathom because we've never seen it before. The reason for this is probably because this is where the pollen is on the flower, okay, around the center here. So the flower wants the bees and the birds to come here so that it can pollinate from flower to flower and attract those birds and bees. We think that this is something that evolutionary rose alongside. So in one side you had the flowers evolving pigments that absorbed UV, and on the other side you had birds and bees evolving color receptors or photoreceptors in the color range for cones that was actually able to see that, and there would have been parallel evolution occur here. It's important to note that this is not actually red. Okay, it's some sort of UV color that we do not have a name for because we cannot see. In this video, we've talked about the visible light, and we've talked about how humans see through 4 different photoreceptors, including 3 color receptors, the cones in the blue, red, and green wavelengths, and how a mixture of these makes all the colors that we see. We've talked about how we perceive different objects to be different colors by which light is absorbed or reflected. We've talked about dogs having only 2 different color cones, so they can't see as well as us, and about starlings having 4 different color cones, so they can see better than us. And we've also touched on the UV pigments that are found in flowers, working alongside with the starlings as a type of bird, as well as bees for pollination. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.